Welcome to Modern Management of the Older Adult, brought to you by the Institute of Clinical Excellence.
Hello, Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to the MMOA podcast brought to you by the Institute of Clinical Excellence. My name is Kay Mayordomo, and I am an outpatient physical therapist and per diem home health physical therapist based in Palo Alto, California. And I'm part of the MMOA team. Before we start, I would like to remind everyone that MMOA Essentials Foundations begins on January 4th. And Advanced Concepts begins on January 14th. So if you've taken Essential Foundations and this is your chance to join the MMOA team for Advanced Concepts and level up your geriatric game. We also have 3 MMOA live courses coming your way this month, 2 on January 14th to 15th in National City, California and Hendersonville, Tennessee, and January 21st to 22nd in Santa Rosa, California. Catch Dustin and I in Santa Rosa and the rest of our wonderful team the other weekend on both sides of the US. So today what we are talking about is what successful behavior change looks like. It's the beginning of the year, which always stirs people up to make changes in their lives. Usually we'll see a good couple of weeks of the change, and then people will start to fall off the wagon, the gyms get emptier, patients may get flakier about going to physical therapy, and they'll pick up their usual patterns of sedentary or unhealthy behaviors. Obviously, it doesn't need to be the beginning of the year, but this is a time when people usually contemplate change a little bit more. I personally love the topic of behavior change and what drives human behavior. I'll set the stage for you first. Let's say we have a patient in front of us that comes back again and again, tells you that they would like to change, but they just can't get themselves to change. You've given them different home exercise programs and tried to incorporate things that they like. You discussed meaningful goals together that would help them participate in their everyday lives more easily. They consistently choose a more sedentary lifestyle rather than putting in the work to change the trajectory of their lives. But what if the issue isn't completely on the patient and it's more on us? More on us to figure out what behavior change strategy will be truly successful. What if changing how they feel within themselves isn't always the answer, but things like group-based problem solving and non-competitive gamification are? An article by McMahon et al. In 2017 looked at which behavior change strategy was more successful in increasing physical activity among older adults aged 70 to 96, interpersonal and or intrapersonal. So they defined interpersonal as facilitating discussions about increasing the give and take of social support for fall reducing physical activity with more important ones, and identifying one's self as a role model. Problem solving social and environmental barriers to physical activity as well, and facilitating the integration of physical activity into social routines, including the use of community resources. They described intrapersonal as facilitation of development of personally meaningful, realistic, and specific physical activity goals based on personal patterns and trends, identifying what makes physical activity satisfying, facilitating integration of physical activity into personal routines, and development of anticipatory plans for coping with potential disruptions. In my eyes, and as a personal reflection, I've seen intrapersonal behavior change strategies utilized more in the clinic, figuring out how patients can self-manage disruptors, what they look like about physical, or what they like about physical activity, and making personally meaningful and realistic goals. In the study by McMahon, they took 102 community dwelling older adults and placed them into 4 different conditions. Each condition had an evidence-based physical activity protocol adapted for small groups called the Otago and a Fitbit, the Fitbit one. But they just varied by the behavior change strategies they used within each group. The Otago consisted of 5 leg strengthening, 12 balance challenging, 5 flexibility, and walking at a light and moderate intensity, consistent with physical activity guidelines. The first condition just had the Otago and the Fitbit one. The second group had the Otago, the Fitbit one, and used interpersonal strategies. The third group had the Otago, Fitbit one, and intrapersonal strategies. And the fourth group had the Otago, the Fitbit one, and both interpersonal strategies and intrapersonal strategies. They attended 8 weekly small group meetings, which were about 90 minutes each, with 4 to 6 other participants in the same condition. They used outcomes of objective and self-reported measures called the CHAMPS, stands for the Community Health Activities Model Program for Seniors, and functional strength and balance measures called the SPPV, short for Short Physical Performance Battery, which consists of standing balance, walking speed, and a 5-time stand from sitting test. So what were the results of this study? Even though both interpersonal and intrapersonal behavior change strategies have the potential to increase older adults' physical activity, in this particular study, only interpersonal behavior change strategies demonstrated meaningful benefit. So participants who received interpersonal behavior change strategies compared to those who did not showed significant increases in their SPPB immediately post-intervention and 6 months post. Those who received intrapersonal behavior change strategies compared to those who did not showed no significant increases in SPPB immediately post-intervention and 6 months later. The interpersonal behavior change group increased their average minutes of total physical activity from baseline to immediately post-intervention by approximately 3 hours per week more than participants who did not receive these strategies. And these increases in physical activity were maintained for up to 6 months post-intervention. I mean, the study definitely had limitations, including sample size. Fall rates weren't measured, which would be totally helpful to get an idea of how physical activity is associated with reduced fall rates. And they also didn't, and the ability to generalize the findings is also limited because the percentage of women who participated in the study was higher than the US population, 75% versus 67%, and the participants with college degrees was also higher in the US population as well, 46% in the study versus 26% in the US population. The MMOA crew has definitely touched on the importance of intensity. So personally, I would love to see if there are any studies that look at moderate to vigorous intensity with the same premise of comparing interpersonal and intrapersonal behavior change strategies. And also maybe a study utilizing a higher level strength and balance test, maybe where they used rep max testing and the mini best test as functional measures. To bring it all together, if we want our patients to be successful in behavior change, especially when we're dealing with life-changing stuff like fall prevention strategies, strengthening, decreasing sedentary time, we need to implement effective strategies. We owe it to our patients to help them figure out how they can be successful in the long term, not just while they're in our care, but after. The study we went over is just one study that found that interpersonal behavior change strategies were more effective 6 months post-study compared to intrapersonal behavior change strategies. But there might be definitely more research on other strategies that are successful. Julie Bauer crushed it with a podcast called Be a Resource Dealer and Matchmaker on the MMOA podcast last March of 2022. She talks about how we can move our patients from sickness to wellness to fitness, and knowing all of the different physical activity options available to match them with our patients appropriately. So I challenge all of you to look back on those patients that you've had difficulty getting to truly change their behaviors around physical activity, and see if you are using more of the interpersonal strategy or intrapersonal strategy unknowingly. Or maybe even look at yourself and see what has helped you in the past. What behavior change strategies helped you stick with consistent physical activity behaviors? Did you join a group class like CrossFit, Orange Theory, Berries, or have an accountability buddy? Did you chart out your workouts? Reflect back on what you did and didn't, or reflect back on what did and didn't work. I challenge you all to do something different with a patient you see that isn't making progress towards true behavior change. Maybe giving your patient more opportunity to have social interaction by providing group class options, finding community resources that help facilitate physical activity while you are seeing them, helping your patients become self-sufficient with using their Apple Watches and Fitbits so that they know what these trends in activity minutes, heart rate, and intensity mean. There has been prior research showing that older adults prefer physical activity programs that offer opportunities to connect and interact with peers. Some of our MMOA team, like Dustin Jones and Jeff Musgrave, run a program called Stronger Life for older adults over 55. And so they're participating in physical activity with other people their age, helping them crush their goals. There's a program called Stave Off that is being started up in North Carolina by Shelby Blankenship, which is based on the program that Christina Previtt had in Canada that is part PT clinic and part gym for older adults and adaptive athletes. Alex Germano will be running a CrossFit program for individuals 55 years and older called True Core Legends program in Maryland. I believe that things like this are successful because these older adults are in a group class with peers where they can see the progress together, they can sweat together, and they can push to be stronger versions of themselves. These are just some examples, but we have to be resource dealers and matchmakers for our patients to continue their wellness and fitness journey long after we're done working with them. Think about this. Did you discharge a patient without being a resource dealer and matchmaker for them, without addressing the behavior change aspects that are limiting the patient from really making forward progress? Please remember that what will happen if our patients don't continue with their forward momentum? Falls may increase, osteoporosis and osteopenia rates may increase, comorbidities may get worse. We have a duty to our patients to help them get back on the right track so they can have a better quality of life and continue to enjoy their time as they age. I would love to hear from all of you about what has worked and what hasn't. Because although this research study found that interpersonal behavior change strategies were more effective, every human being is unique, and what works for one person may not always work for another. Thank you. Happy New Year, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the MMOA podcast. If you found this helpful, please share with someone that could benefit. And if you're looking for more practical content to help you better serve older adults, head over to www.mmoa.online, where you can learn more about our free resources, our community, continuing education courses, and our certification. Once again, that's www.mmoa.online. Thanks for listening.